The more you learn about the Imperium of Man, the more you realize that any little thing that you do can get you in trouble. No matter how insignificant it may seem, if anyone with some form of authority takes what you did the wrong way, it could land you in prison. And the reason for this is wrapped up in that dog-eat-dog mentality of most of the cultures of the Imperium of Man. From the highborns that are constantly watching their back, to the manufactorum workers that must compete with each other to achieve output quotas. And as interesting as this social phenomenon is, it deserves a video all on its own, because in this video, we have to talk about what happens when an Imperial citizen gets labeled as a criminal. The massive volume of crimes that are supposedly being committed creates a criminal population that is enormous. Obviously, most of these individuals are not as bloodthirsty and deranged as the criminals that we're used to hearing about in the lore. Many of them are family members of individuals that somehow threaten the rule of a nobleborn. But the answer to such a massive population of quote-unquote criminals is to separate them from the rest of the population, most notably on planets that function as military prisons. These planets are recognized as penal worlds by the Imperium of Man, and every sector and sometimes even subsectors have a couple of these prison planets. And with that said, I want to welcome you guys back to another 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and today we're going to be talking about penal worlds. If you guys are new to the channel, we post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you guys enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, share with your friends, support us on Patreon, do all that cool stuff. Really appreciate it. But with all that said, let's get into 40 Facts on penal worlds. Penal worlds tend to be barren, barely habitable planets that have few other uses and have little, if any, indigenous populations. The structure of these worlds vary from planet to planet. Some actually have organized prisons scattered throughout the world, and each is heavily guarded by arbitrators, while others are simply drop-off points where the prisoners are dumped onto the surface of a feral world and then left to their own survival. Most sectors have both types of these worlds, where the structured penal worlds are for the petty thieves, the conmen, the looters, the political agitators and their families, and the feral penal worlds are reserved for the murderers, rapists, and truly violent criminals. But the true organization of these purgatory planets is completely left to the sector council. Let's first take a look at the structured penal worlds. For the unlucky prisoners that land on these planets, the criminals labor and toil at various menial tasks while serving out their sentences, and although they have the potential to parole out, only a few actually do. Life on these penal colonies is extremely regimented and heavily monitored. Daily menial labor maintaining the grounds, or mining and extracting resources, is designed to tax even the hardiest individual's energy level, thereby reducing the incident of violent encounters. Food is largely bland and heavily processed to inhibit muscle growth and dull the senses. Constant lockdowns when not working or eating all but eliminates the ability to hope for a better day. These calculated practices break the will of the inmates. On these worlds, the planetary governor is also a global prison warden, and his authority is absolute. The warden and his guards often brutalize the inmate population, adding to their considerable misery and mortality. The populace tends to be hardened, ruthless, shifty, and untrustworthy because of all of this. The biggest benefit of these types of penal planets is the massive source of potential soldiers. Military formations are often raised from amongst the prison populations and serve as penal legion troops within the Imperial Guard. To learn more about penal legions, check out our 40 Facts on penal legions. I'll put a link up above. When the demand of expendable soldiers is the highest, Lord Generals send word back along the worlds that they have conquered and request additional troops from all of the planets capable of sending them. Penal colonies are often able to send viable troops who seek little more than the final taste of freedom and redemption in the service of the God Emperor. While it seems like having an Imperial Guard regiment made up of criminals is a bad idea, as they would be difficult to control, the truth is that life on a penal world develops survival strategies to inure themselves to the horrors around them, making them surprisingly tough soldiers. Back on their prison planets, many criminals band together in gangs to provide support, protection, and strength. Some have to rely on intimidation or reputation to keep potential threats at bay. Those unable to cope either find their way into their graves or end up more deeply imprisoned by their fellow inmates. The few able to survive and emerge from this environment stronger and more defined are the ones that have the potential to be great soldiers. Now we can move on to the penal colonies that are so far removed from the rest of the Imperium that they are merely dumping grounds for what the sector or subsector government considers human trash. On these worlds, transport fleets often arrive in-system festooned with one-way drop pods filled with convicts. Once in orbit, they fire off the pods and then depart for a hasty transition back into the warp, leaving the accused to fend for themselves. On some of these worlds, a single established bastion provides updates or provides a basis for the Imperial Guard to arrive and collect its tithes. In others, those who survive form their own tribal groupings and struggle to exist with what remains of the pods and any gear that they were given. The best example of this type of penal colony is the planet of Xi'an. The planet of Xi'an was located in the Orpheus salient of the Jericho Reach in the Jericho sector. During the Great Crusade, the planet became a penal world, where heretics, criminals, and cowards were dumped on the planet's surface. The Imperium allowed survival of the fittest to run its course here. Little was done to monitor the system, as the hazardous environment was deemed sufficient punishment and an effective prison. Xi'an's atmosphere is tinged yellow by the sulfurous fumes that constantly bubble from the hot springs scattered across its surface. These dense fumes leave the planet's surface a dim place, as thick acidic clouds diffuse the light. While breathable, the atmosphere leaves a foul taste in the mouth of those who visit, and lasting scar tissue in the lungs of those who stay. The planet's highly active core causes frequent tectonic instability, which is likely tied to the constant eruptions from the assorted geysers and the steady emission of gases through the hot swamplands. Surprisingly, the planet's ubiquitous swamps are filled with aquatic life that thrive in the intensely acidic environment. That's because the plants draw energy from the geothermal heat that flows through these swamps, using this as an energy source rather than the light of the system star. Small predatory animals are common throughout these bogs, but they represent far less of a threat than the atmosphere itself. In the millennia since the Great Crusade, the few million humans who have dwelt on the planet have done so in small communities, typically less than 100 people. Through the ages, these humans have adapted to their toxic environment. They can tolerate the highly sulfuric atmosphere, and their diet is actually better than those of the outside world. Their vision has also adapted to the haze, though not so well that they are considered mutants. Nearly all the planet's populations are the offsprings of those criminals who managed to survive the brutal conditions. Largely seen as filth by the other Imperial planets, the natives have not responded well to any type of crusade or an effort to reunite their planet with the Imperium of Man. Some of the Crusade's officers argue that as descendant of prisoners, these inhabitants could scarcely qualify for membership into the Imperium. Of course, as a penal world, they were not due any support from the Imperium either. This meant that reasserting compliance after once more designating Xi'an as a penal world was an easy feat. The Orpheus salient had already begun the process of raising penal legions from the system's hardy population. These descendants of Imperial outcasts have so far cooperated reluctantly, but they have little recourse. As units of the Departamental Munitorum have begun to spend time on the planet to train the First Regiment, they have come across a number of worrisome legends. It seems that there are many tales of aggressive Xenos that lurk in the hottest and murkiest parts of the swamp. While there is no evidence to confirm this, there are always disappearances. And because of the environment, it has made tracking anything completely impossible, which has led to numerous unexplained disappearances amongst natives and the soldiers of the Crusade. Even establishing stable outposts on the murky surface has been met with challenges by the Imperial units. And that is the lore to the penal world. With that said, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, if you could put my freedom